something unusual is unfolding behind the scenes of global politics. For years, Iran believed it had powerful partners on the international stage, countries that would support it economically, diplomatically, and sometimes strategically. These relationships helped Tehran navigate decades of sanctions, political pressure, and regional conflicts. But recently, something appears to be changing. Events in the Persian Gulf have triggered reactions from governments across the world. Shipping routes have been disrupted, energy markets are reacting, and alliances that once appeared stable are now being quietly tested. At the center of this growing tension lies one of the most important choke points on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and ultimately to the open ocean. At its narrowest point, the strait is only about 30 kilometers wide. Yet despite its small size, it plays a massive role in the global economy. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this single route. Every day, massive oil tankers move through these waters, carrying energy from the oil-rich Gulf states to markets across the planet. And most of that oil is not heading west, it is heading east. Asian economies depend heavily on the energy flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. Countries like China, Japan, South Korea, and India import enormous quantities of oil from the Persian Gulf. For these economies, uninterrupted access to Gulf energy supplies is essential. Any disruption in this region can quickly ripple across global markets. And that is exactly why recent developments have drawn so much international attention. Reports of attacks on commercial shipping and energy infrastructure in the region have raised concerns about the safety of one of the world's most critical maritime routes. Several tankers have reportedly been damaged. Ports and oil facilities have faced threats. Insurance costs for vessels traveling through the area have increased dramatically. Whenever instability appears in the Strait of Hormuz, global markets react almost immediately. Oil prices can rise within hours. Shipping companies begin evaluating alternative routes, and governments around the world start assessing the potential impact on their economies. But the region most affected by disruptions in Gulf oil supply is not Europe or the United States. It is Asia. China, the world's largest importer of crude oil, relies heavily on energy shipments from the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia exports massive quantities of oil to Chinese markets every year. Iraq sends enormous volumes as well. The United Arab Emirates also exports significant amounts of oil to Asian economies. When analysts examine global energy data, one thing becomes clear. Asian countries depend on the Strait of Hormuz more than any other region on Earth, which means instability in the Gulf has immediate consequences thousands of kilometers away. Inside China, rising energy prices quickly become a domestic concern. Transportation costs increase. Industrial production becomes more expensive, and governments must carefully manage fuel supplies to avoid economic disruption. Energy security is therefore one of Beijing's highest strategic priorities. Any threat to global oil flows quickly becomes a serious geopolitical issue. That is why international reactions to recent developments in the Persian Gulf have been closely watched. Several governments have emphasized the importance of protecting civilian shipping routes and maintaining stability in global energy markets. China, in particular, has publicly called for de-escalation and renewed dialogue between all parties involved. In diplomatic language, the message was clear. Disruptions to international trade routes and energy supplies are unacceptable. And China is not the only country carefully evaluating the situation. Another important regional player is Oman. For years, Oman has positioned itself as a neutral mediator in Middle Eastern politics. The country has often acted as a bridge between Iran and Western nations, helping facilitate negotiations and diplomatic communication. Oman has historically avoided taking sides in regional conflicts. Yet recent attacks affecting infrastructure connected to Oman have raised concerns about how far regional tensions might spread. If even neutral countries are affected by instability, the situation becomes much more complicated. For analysts studying the region, an important question emerges. What exactly is the strategic calculation behind disrupting shipping routes in the Persian Gulf? Some experts believe the goal may be economic pressure. Iran faces significant military disadvantages when confronting powerful states directly. Instead of engaging in conventional warfare, the strategy could involve targeting global economic vulnerabilities. Energy markets are one such vulnerability. If oil shipments become too dangerous, if prices rise high enough, the theory suggests that global economic pressure might push major powers toward negotiations. But strategies based on economic disruption are extremely risky. They can just as easily produce the opposite effect. Instead of dividing international actors, they can unite them. Recent discussions at the United Nations illustrate this dynamic. Diplomatic efforts have focused on condemning attacks on civilian infrastructure and commercial vessels. Security Council debates revealed broad concern about maintaining stability in international shipping lanes. For many countries, protecting freedom of navigation is not simply a regional issue, it is a global one. Meanwhile, tensions across the Persian Gulf continue to rise. Cities such as Doha, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai are major international hubs. They are financial centers, tourism destinations, and key nodes in global trade. Any instability affecting these cities carries enormous economic implications. Governments in the region therefore face difficult choices. They must balance diplomatic caution with the need to protect infrastructure and civilian populations. Behind closed doors, discussions have reportedly taken place about increasing maritime security in the region. One proposal gaining attention involves the creation of an international naval mission to escort commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz. The goal would be to ensure that oil shipments and cargo vessels can travel safely despite regional tensions. This idea may sound dramatic, but it is not without historical precedent. During the Iran-Iraq War in the late 1980s, international naval forces escorted tankers through the Persian Gulf to keep global oil supplies flowing. At that time, the operation became known as the Tanker War. Naval escorts were used to protect commercial vessels from attacks and ensure freedom of navigation. Today, decades later, some analysts believe similar measures might again become necessary. Several European countries have already signaled interest in protecting global shipping routes. France and Greece have participated in previous maritime security missions designed to ensure safe navigation through strategic waterways. Such efforts highlight how regional conflicts can quickly evolve into international concerns. But amid all these geopolitical developments, another strange mystery has emerged. Something far less visible, but extremely intriguing. Shortly after the latest escalation in the region, radio enthusiasts around the world detected an unusual shortwave transmission. A calm male voice speaking in Persian, reading sequences of numbers, again and again. The pattern appears almost mechanical. First, a series of numbers is read aloud. Then a pause. Then the Persian word for attention, repeated several times. Then the numbers begin again. No explanation. No official identification. Just a continuous stream of coded numbers broadcast across shortwave frequencies. For experts familiar with intelligence history, this pattern immediately sounded familiar. It resembled something known as a numbers station. During the Cold War, numbers stations were widely used by intelligence agencies. These radio broadcasts transmitted encrypted instructions to operatives operating in foreign countries. Anyone could listen to the broadcast. But without the correct decoding key, the message would remain completely meaningless. The encryption methods used were often extremely secure. Some experts describe them as practically unbreakable, without access to the original cipher key. Numbers stations were once common across the shortwave spectrum. Signals originating from different countries broadcast coded sequences in multiple languages. Some transmissions even used music or unusual sounds to signal the start of a coded message. Today, many of these mysterious broadcasts have disappeared, but occasionally new signals appear. The recent Persian language transmission has therefore attracted significant attention. Adding to the mystery, the signal has occasionally been jammed. Electronic interference has flooded the frequency, making the numbers difficult to hear. Yet the broadcast continues, sometimes shifting to new frequencies, sometimes appearing at slightly different times. No government has publicly acknowledged responsibility, which leaves observers with an intriguing puzzle. Who is transmitting the numbers? And who might be attempting to block them? Some analysts speculate that the signal could be linked to intelligence operations related to current geopolitical tensions. Others believe it might simply be unrelated radio traffic that gained attention because of the ongoing conflict. For now, the truth remains unknown. Another factor that analysts are closely watching is the broader geopolitical balance in the region. The Persian Gulf has always been one of the most strategically important areas on Earth, not only because of oil, but because of its location at the intersection of global trade routes. For decades, major world powers have maintained a strong presence in the region. The United States operates several large military bases across the Gulf states. European nations maintain naval deployments that monitor maritime security. And regional powers continue to invest heavily in defense systems designed to protect critical infrastructure. Satellite imagery in recent weeks has shown increased naval activity across the region. Warships have been spotted moving closer to key shipping lanes. Surveillance aircraft are conducting more frequent patrols over the Gulf. And military analysts say these movements suggest that governments are preparing for multiple possible scenarios. Some experts believe the goal is simple deterrence. The presence of international naval forces could reduce the likelihood of further attacks on commercial shipping. Others argue that increased military activity carries its own risks. When multiple armed forces operate in close proximity, the chances of misunderstandings or accidental escalation increase. History has shown that conflicts in the Persian Gulf can escalate quickly. A single incident at sea, a damaged tanker, or a misinterpreted radar signal. Any of these events could trigger reactions that spread far beyond the region. That is why diplomatic channels remain extremely active behind the scenes. Officials from multiple countries are reportedly engaged in ongoing discussions aimed at reducing tensions. Back-channel negotiations are a common feature of international diplomacy, especially during moments of crisis. While public statements may appear cautious or even confrontational, private diplomatic conversations often tell a very different story. For now, the situation remains fluid. Markets are watching closely. Governments are monitoring developments hour by hour. And analysts around the world are attempting to understand where events may lead next. Because when energy routes, global trade, and geopolitical rivalry intersect in one place, the consequences can shape the international system for years to come. History has repeatedly shown that events in this region rarely remain local. Because when global energy routes are involved, the consequences can extend far beyond the Middle East. What begins as a regional crisis can quickly influence the entire world economy. And that is why policymakers, analysts, and governments around the globe are paying such close attention to developments in the Persian Gulf. Whether tensions escalate further or eventually lead to diplomatic solutions remains uncertain. But the stakes are undeniably high. For energy markets, for international trade, and for the stability of one of the most strategically important regions on Earth. So now we want to hear from you. What do you think about the situation in the Persian Gulf? Do you believe tensions will escalate further? Or do you think diplomatic efforts will eventually stabilize the region? And what do you think about the mysterious numbers station broadcast? Could it be connected to intelligence operations? Or is it simply an unexplained signal that appeared during a time of heightened global tension? Write your thoughts in the comments below. And if there is another geopolitical story you would like to see explained next, tell us as well. We read every comment